My great uncle, Lawrence Merkel, was a fireman on board the ship at the time the ship was lost.
27 U.S. Navy sailors lost their lives. They disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle, and there has still never been an adequate explanation for what happened to them.
For decades, this stretch of ocean has whispered tales of vanishing planes, lost ships, and unanswered calls. It's a place where navigation fails, where skies seem clear until they're not, and where crews vanish without a trace. But what if the truth was never as far-fetched as we thought? What if science has been quietly closing in on a much more grounded answer? One that doesn't involve sea monsters or time warps, yet is no less chilling. A recent discovery on the Bermuda Triangle sheds light on a detail most people overlook, and it might just explain why so many never made it back. The question now isn't if the mystery is solvable, it's how close we've already come. The legend of the Bermuda Triangle. The Bermuda Triangle, often referred to as the Devil's Triangle, is a loosely defined region of the North Atlantic Ocean forming a triangle between Miami, Florida, Bermuda, and San Juan, Puerto Rico. Covering between 500,000 to 1.5 million square miles, this region has earned a reputation for mysterious disappearances of ships and aircraft. Despite its fame, the U.S. Board on Geographic Names does not officially recognize the Bermuda Triangle as a geographic location, and no government agency considers it an area of unusual danger. Still, the legend persists, fueled by decades of unexplained vanishings and sensational accounts. The mystery gained international attention after the 1945 disappearance of Flight 19, a group of 5 U.S. Navy bombers that vanished during a training mission. A rescue aircraft sent to search for them also disappeared without a trace, cementing the area's eerie status. In a span of just 30 minutes, 6 aircraft and 27 crewmen were lost. Events like these, along with other high-profile cases, helped create a narrative that blends science fiction, superstition, and real tragedy. The Triangle was once again at the center of attraction in the 1970s. From books such as Charles Berlitz's The Bermuda Triangle, which described it as a region hot for paranormal activities. Most of the bulging allegations have since been debunked, but the interest remains. The area is also one of the heaviest traveled commercial and cargo routes in the world, which would naturally cause a ramp-up of the number of incidents, many of which are due to normal navigational and weather hazards. The Bermuda Triangle is still an object of speculation, despite efforts to substantiate the claims against it. Today's scientists accept that most incidents of the region occur as a result of environmental conditions, mechanical failures, and human error, leaving room for more exotic yet natural explanations, like magnetic anomalies or eruptions of methane gas. It is the storytelling, repeating, and mythologizing of the triangle across generations that have sustained its image, not any unexplained phenomena. The disappearance of Flight 19. One of the most pivotal events in the Bermuda Triangle's history occurred on December 5, 1945, when 5 U.S. Navy TBM Avenger torpedo bombers, known collectively as Flight 19, disappeared during a routine training mission out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The mission plan was simple: fly east to practice bombing over Hens and Chickens Shoals, then head north over Grand Bahama Island, and return west to base. The lead pilot, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, was highly experienced, with over 2,500 flight hours, and the weather that day was mostly clear, conditions that should have made for a straightforward flight. About 90 minutes into the mission, Taylor reported that his compass was malfunctioning and he no longer recognized the terrain below. Other pilots echoed the confusion, with one saying, "Everything is wrong. Even the ocean looks strange." Believing they had mistakenly flown over the Florida Keys, Taylor ordered the squadron to turn northeast, unintentionally guiding them further out to sea. In reality, they were flying over the Bahamas and were close to completing their intended route. Misjudgments and failing instruments, combined with fuel depletion, drummed the squadron hopelessly lost. Radio contact deteriorated further. At one point, Taylor handed over the command to the other pilot, which is an unusual and unexplained act. The last message described entering white water, possibly referring to the stormy sea or sea spray, subsequently breaking all communication. The Navy sent a Martin PBM Mariner rescue aircraft, which soon thereafter disappeared just after takeoff. There was a report from the witnesses of an aerial explosion, probably due to a fuel leak, slaying all 13 men aboard the rescue flight. Not a single piece of wreckage, nor a single body, was ever found in this case despite the undertakings of a massive searching operation that covered an area of 250,000 square miles. This incident became one of the cornerstones of the Bermuda Triangle legend. With 6 aircraft lost in a single day and no clear reason, these disappearances began giving cachet to the Bermuda Triangle as a region that defies the natural laws and the rules of navigation. Compass malfunctions and magnetic anomalies. One of the most frequently cited phenomena in Bermuda Triangle incidents is the malfunction of compasses and navigational instruments. Pilots and mariners have long reported cases where their compasses behave erratically, sometimes pointing toward true north instead of magnetic north, causing significant deviations in navigation. This issue played a central role in the Flight 19 disaster, where multiple pilots, including Lieutenant Charles Taylor, reported that their compasses had stopped working properly, leaving them unsure of their location. Scientists have explored a natural explanation for these anomalies, focusing on magnetite, a highly magnetic mineral found in large quantities in the volcanic basalt that makes up parts of the ocean floor near Bermuda. These magnetic minerals are believed to be remnants of an ancient underwater volcano that helped form the island of Bermuda. Because magnetite is the most magnetic naturally occurring substance on Earth, it can cause localized disruptions in Earth's magnetic field, especially in an area already affected by natural geomagnetic variation. From compass deviations of 10 degrees, these disturbances may affect a ship or aircraft over long distances and could greatly alter its course. In fact, magnetic anomalies are thought to extend from 200 miles or more into the Caribbean Sea off the coast of Florida, meaning that even navigators following accepted procedures could find themselves adrift and not even be aware of it. Experts still warn that magnetic variation is not confined to the Bermuda Triangle. It exists elsewhere and has for centuries been one of the great factors of modern navigation systems. While magnetic interference may not account for all disappearances, the phenomenon still ranks as a plausible contributing factor, especially during the mid-20th century, when jeeps did not exist and compasses were the pilot's primary tool for orientation over the open ocean. Even small errors in compass readings could lead to disastrous outcomes if not noticed or corrected. Some of the more flamboyant accounts have exaggerated the mystery aspect, but compass malfunction is one scientifically documented phenomenon with the most credible tie to the eternal intrigue of the Bermuda Triangle. The mystery of the Star Tiger. On January 30th, 1948, the Star Tiger, a British South American Airways Avro Tudor 4 aircraft, vanished without a trace while en route to Bermuda from Santa Maria in the Azores. On board were 31 people, including crew and passengers. The aircraft was captained by Brian McMillan, a seasoned World War II pilot familiar with the transatlantic route. Although the aircraft encountered poor weather during its initial leg, the Star Tiger delayed its departure and waited for better conditions, demonstrating a cautious and measured approach by the flight crew. Despite moderate turbulence and strong winds, the flight proceeded at an unusually low cruising altitude of 2,000 feet to avoid higher altitude winds. The final transmission came at 3:15 a.m., when the crew confirmed their position and gave an expected arrival time in Bermuda of 5:00 a.m. After that, all radio contact was lost. When Bermuda's air traffic control tried to re-establish communication later that morning, they received no response. The aircraft never arrived, and no distress signal was ever sent. A massive search involving 26 planes and 882 hours of flight time yielded no wreckage, no debris, and no clues. Some theories postulate that the Star Tiger might have flown through a methane hydrate blowout, a scientifically interesting but rather speculative thought. These blowouts occur when methane gas is released under the seabed and causes catastrophic eruptions owing to massive underwater landslides or tectonic activity. The gas would then phase up with hands-on pace, sufficing to drop air density, and, mostly with low-altitude flights such as Star Tiger, the engines may fail due to lack of lift. Methane can set up flames, so its presence in combustion may create engine explosions or flameouts. Pilot error or instrument failure is another possibility. Strikingly, the pilot had reported an altitude of 20,000 when he should have said 2,000, an error that during descent could have proved fatal. After an extensive investigation, no definite cause has been established. Never having found any debris, the disappearance of the Star Tiger remains one of the most lasting mysteries associated with the Bermuda Triangle, reinforcing its reputation as a place where unaccountably experienced crews and advanced aircraft seem to disappear without any trace. Methane hydrate explosions. Among the more intriguing scientific theories proposed to explain some of the Bermuda Triangle's most puzzling disappearances is the phenomenon of methane hydrate explosions. Beneath certain parts of the ocean floor lie massive reserves of methane gas, trapped within ice-like structures called methane hydrates. These are stable under specific conditions of low temperature and high pressure, but when disturbed by underwater landslides, tectonic shifts, or warming ocean currents, they can suddenly release enormous volumes of methane in a rapid, violent eruption. When such a blowout occurs, the gas bubbles can rise through the water, creating aerated or foamy water with drastically reduced density. This condition can render a ship unable to float, causing it to sink without warning or distress signals. Controlled experiments have confirmed that vessels caught in such foamy water can lose buoyancy instantly. In a region like the Bermuda Triangle, where the seafloor contains deep trenches and complex geology, the presence of these methane deposits offers a plausible, if rare, mechanism for ship disappearances. Indeed, the implications for aircraft are also ominous. Methane would be highly incendiary, and if a large amount of gas rose up and found its way into the engine inlets of some airplane, the result could be an engine flame-out stage or even an explosion in midair. Airborne objects flying lower, such as the Star Tiger, which was cruising just 2,000 feet high, will be even more susceptible to being drawn into a suddenly bursting methane plume rising from the sea. Although this kind of incident is still in speculation, it is one of the rare scientifically viable hypotheses that would account for the rapid and complete disappearance of an aircraft or ship without a mayday signal or any wreckage. Importantly, however, there has been nothing in the way of confirmed methane eruptions linked to any Bermuda Triangle disappearance. Although laboratory simulations and geological studies would back the possibility of such events happening, there is presently no specific evidence suggesting that one occurred here on a sufficiently large scale to affect an airplane or vessel. Hence, although the methane theory also remains a prospect worth considering, it is only one among the many natural causes now looked into rather than the proven reason for such incidents. The 2003 research, published in the American Journal of Physics, gave further scientific weight to the methane theory. It proved that huge methane eruptions could destabilize watercraft and even aircraft in some oceans. The researchers modeled gas bubble release events that suddenly reduced water density, heavily nullifying buoyant support to a vessel. Interestingly, some satellite images have occasionally shown such huge circular depressions, the so-called pockmarks, in the ocean floor near Bermuda, which, according to some geologists, could be interpreted as past signs of gas blowouts. As marine geologist Dr. Christian Berndt told the BBC, these structures prove there was an explosive release of gas. Such geological features, while not the end-all evidence for Bermuda Triangle disappearances, probably serve as very strong points in favor of large-scale methane events occurring in the geological past of this area. Yet, just when scientists thought the ocean floor might hold the answers, one aircraft vanished under even stranger skies. The DC-3 disappearance over San Juan. On the night of December 27, 1908, Douglas DC-3 passenger aircraft mysteriously vanished during a flight from San Juan, Puerto Rico to Miami, Florida, with 32 people on board. The aircraft, piloted by Captain Robert Lindquist, had already completed a flight from Miami earlier that day and was preparing for its return leg. Before takeoff, engineers noted two critical issues. The battery was low, and the radio transmitter was only partially functional, capable of receiving signals but unable to send them reliably. Rather than wait for a full battery recharge, Captain Lindquist opted to take off and recharge in the air using the plane's generator, a choice that would later prove fateful. At 10:03 p.m., the DC-3 departed San Juan and remained in a holding pattern nearby until two-way communication with Miami was established. At 11:23 p.m., Lindquist reported that the plane was flying at 8,300 feet, with an estimated arrival time in Miami of 4:03 a.m. But soon, strange anomalies began to surface. Radio transmissions meant for Miami were picked up by the New Orleans airport, over 600 miles away, while San Juan, much closer to the aircraft's position, received nothing. This bizarre pattern of signal reception has led some to suspect electromagnetic interference, although no technical malfunction was ever confirmed. The last signal showed that the aircraft was flying 50 miles away from Miami and seemed to arrive on time and steadily, but it never came. There were many attempts to contact, but it failed. A major search operation was carried out to cover hundreds of thousands of square miles by both air and sea, but to no avail. There were no wreckages, no bodies, and no oil slicks found. Since then, the aircraft and all of the 32 people on board have never been seen again, making this the deadliest disappearance case linked to the Bermuda Triangle. Amongst several possibilities are low battery instrument failure and navigational disorientation of the DC-3 relative to open sea at night. The flight crew becoming disoriented due to darkness and inadequate functioning equipment might also have led the aircraft astray because of fuel exhaustion. Some investigators have also posited a magnetic or atmospheric anomalies that would have affected communication and navigation. After decades of investigation, these questions still remain unsolved, making the Bermuda Triangle even more notorious for having normal flights end up in total mystery. Among many other things, an interesting yet totally unknown phenomenon on the part of the DC-3 crash was solar activity distorting radio signals and navigation instruments. There was considerable research into the subject of solar storms and geomagnetic disturbances in the late 1940s, and some top-level experts allege that increased solar flare activity on the day of the flight may have been responsible for the strange communication issues. According to NOAA archives on data, solar activity increased much earlier and reached fairly high levels in late December 1948, which could have affected radio signals and possibly affected the DC-3's magnetic compass. It's speculation that adds another dimension to the mystery, hinting that space weather, largely forgotten, might have been an unseen variable affecting key systems as they sailed into the final hours for the flight. Human error and mechanical failures. While theories about magnetic anomalies and methane eruptions are compelling, human error and mechanical failure remain the most widely accepted explanations for many incidents in the Bermuda Triangle. Historical cases like Flight 19 and the DC-3 disappearance over San Juan show clear patterns of pilot disorientation, poor decision-making, and equipment malfunction. In the case of the DC-3, for instance, the pilot knowingly took off with a weak battery and a malfunctioning radio, choosing to rely on in-flight recharging rather than delay the mission. Though not reckless for the time, this decision drastically reduced the margin for error. In the mid-20th century, aviation and maritime technology lacked the reliability and precision of today's jeeps and communication systems. Navigation depended heavily on magnetic compasses, visual landmarks, and rudimentary instruments, many of which were vulnerable to failure or external interference. During Flight 19, Lieutenant Charles Taylor misidentified the Bahamas for the Florida Keys, directing the group further out to sea. His compass was unreliable, but it was his interpretation and judgment that ultimately sealed their fate. Every accident relating to the infamous triangle has officially been attributed by agencies such as the U.S. Coast Guard and the National Transportation Safety Board to navigational mistakes, miscalculations of the weather, or lack of maintenance. Accidents in this region may often be a result of human error, weather, or equipment failure, but not necessarily the forces of nature itself, as Wikipedia says. Under pressure from conditions such as limited landmarks or rapidly changing weather conditions, just one misstep can prove catastrophic. As far as enigma goes, the Bermuda Triangle is steeped in it, but it boasts real tragedy. Just like all navigational predicaments of the early 1900s, there was limited mechanical reliability, less established emergency protocols in place, and primitive weather forecasts, as today's experience deals with. In this context, high volumes of traffic with fluctuations of atmospheric conditions were conditions perfect for accidents. While the legend of the supernatural may interest many people, much of the evidence points to ordinary yet dangerous factors likely responsible for many of the most famous disappearances within the triangle. Another underappreciated cause of accidents in the Bermuda Triangle is fatigue and overconfidence among veteran members of a crew. In several documented cases, pilots and captains with vast hours of flight or sailing have made serious mistakes based on assumptions made under pressure. In the case of the disappearance of the SS Marine Sulphur Queen in 1963, an aging tanker that was mechanically unfit and manned by a crew supposedly concerned about the condition of the ship. According to official investigation reports, the administratively insane ship, structurally unsound, had engine problems in the past. Factors like complacency, combined with poor maintenance decisions, undue pressure to deliver goods on time, have stretched the envelope before in this otherwise volatile region, thus leading to some very risky decisions on the part of human beings. Hurricanes and severe weather patterns. Another major factor behind many of the disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle is its exposure to intense and unpredictable weather, particularly hurricanes and tropical storms. These systems often originate off the west coast of Africa, where dry Saharan air interacts with warm, moist Atlantic air, creating powerful atmospheric instability. As these storm systems travel westward, they gain strength by drawing energy from the warm ocean waters, often intensifying into full-blown hurricanes by the time they reach the Caribbean and the waters around the triangle. This region's climate makes it especially prone to rapidly developing storms, many of which can be difficult to predict, especially with the limited meteorological tools available in the early and mid-20th century. Planes and ships could suddenly find themselves caught in violent wind shear, torrential rain, and massive ocean swells, with little warning and few options for escape. Disappearances like those of Flight 19 and the Star Tiger occurred under conditions where weather deterioration may have played a significant role, whether or not it was fully understood at the time. Historical sea traffic through the Bermuda Triangle thus aggravates any risk already associated with that region. As Indy 100 puts it, this area remains one of the most heavily trafficked shipping lanes in the world, as thousands of vessels and aircraft cross it per year. The greater the regional activity in pursuit of these severe weather events, the greater the statistical likelihood of accidents. Prior to advanced technology like satellite imaging, real-time radar, and storm tracking, crews had very limited capabilities to identify or avoid the full impact of these fast-moving systems. Today, hurricanes in the Atlantic are closely monitored, while modern vessels and aircraft have access to advanced forecasting tools. But it wasn't always that way. Sudden squalls in the past could disorient or incapacitate vessels or aircraft in mere minutes. Such environmental realities, therefore, are a reasonable basis for many of the disappearances associated with the Bermuda Triangle. This location's infamous and culpable history has the possibility of being blamed on nature's wrath and the failures of technology, rather than anything outside the realm of nature. Adding to this environmental complexity is the Gulf Stream, a powerful warm ocean current that flows directly through the Bermuda Triangle. The Gulf Stream is made up of unpredictable and fast water that throws debris and graffiti from ships or from planes at incredible speed, and leaving search and rescue operations in trouble. As NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, explains, the Gulf Stream is like a river within the ocean, and it can take objects hundreds of miles from where they are found. This is what makes so many wrecks never found, feeding the idea of complete disappearances into the culture. The quick-moving waves that are storm-driven, combined with surface currents of changing direction, are a very critical aspect of the Gulf Stream, masking evidence, but one often overlooked when understanding the true mystery that exists in an area. Frequency and misreporting of disappearances. Despite the Bermuda Triangle's infamous status, the actual number of confirmed disappearances in the region is far fewer and far less mysterious than often portrayed. Many stories that fuel the legend are based on incomplete data, exaggerated accounts, or incidents that occurred outside the Triangle's commonly accepted boundaries. Over time, media coverage, fictional retellings, and even fabricated accounts have blurred the line between documented events and myth-making. The result is a powerful narrative built more on folklore than on verified fact. Organizations like the U.S. Coast Guard have made it clear that the Bermuda Triangle is not considered unusually dangerous. In official statements, the Coast Guard has said, "The Coast Guard does not recognize the existence of the so-called Bermuda Triangle as a geographic area of specific hazard to ships or planes." Similarly, insurance companies do not assign higher risk premiums to vessels crossing the region, an indication that industry data does not support its reputation as a danger zone. In reality, the density of traffic in this part of the Atlantic Ocean likely explains why more incidents are recorded here than in quieter regions. Most triangle stories collapse upon further investigation. One such tale is of the Ellen Austin, a ship said to have found a derelict vessel, transported its own crew onto the ship, and then lost it altogether. There is no credible documentation that shows the story ever happened, and the earliest forms of the tale date at least several decades later, with serious inconsistencies. Other similar cases have been misdated, misreported, or occurred during well-known storms or mechanical failures, details conveniently omitted in the rewritings that feed the mystery. For the most part, the Bermuda Triangle is a case study in confirmation bias and cultural storytelling, rather than a place in which lesser-known paranormal phenomena are said to occur. The myth or idea of danger lives on in people's minds simply because of all the stories. However, the second that you view the incidents using the modern principles of navigation, meteorology, and historical examination, that is when the mystery begins to disperse. What is left is a heavily traveled area of the ocean, like many others worldwide, prone to human blunder and natural hazards, but much more enshrined in a never-fading myth. Giving further in-depth research into the studies of archived naval records and aviation records, many of the so-called triangle incidents are said to have been resolved later through standard investigative procedures. One such incident would include the famous cargo ship SS Cotopaxi, which had disappeared in 1925, with Bermuda Triangle hypotheses lingering over it for all these years, only to finally be found almost a century later, just off the coast of St. Augustine, state of Florida. Identification of the ship was confirmed through a team of marine archaeologists in 2020, matching the ship design and cargo with historical records. In the words of researcher Michael Barnett, the story of the Cotopaxi being part of the Bermuda Triangle mystery is entirely fictional. Such discoveries indicate that, much of the time, technology and investigation have stripped away a few layers of myth about an event to reveal a rather sober outside view. And yet, despite the evidence, the Triangle refuses to let go of its grip on us. Scientific investigations and modern understanding. In recent decades, scientific investigations have dramatically reshaped how we understand the Bermuda Triangle. Far from being an unsolvable enigma, the region is now viewed through the lens of data, technology, and critical analysis. Advances in satellite navigation, real-time weather monitoring, and automated communication systems have significantly reduced the number of disappearances. Aircraft and ships today are equipped with tools that would have prevented many of the tragedies from earlier decades. Tools that can instantly detect course deviations, alert crews to approaching storms, and maintain constant contact with multiple control centers. The mystery has also been stripped down by improvements in our understanding of natural phenomena. Magnetic anomalies, once thought to be exclusive to the Bermuda Triangle, are now known to occur in various locations worldwide due to fluctuations in Earth's magnetic field and local geology. Similarly, while methane hydrate eruptions remain a plausible scientific theory, there is no recorded instance of such an event causing a verified disappearance in the region. As a result, modern experts now lean toward environmental and technological explanations rather than supernatural ones. However, the fascination with the triangle remains potent. One of the reasons for this rests with the unsolved cases. Flight 19 or the Star Tiger, the clear answers to each of which have remained elusive after investigation. These uncanny occurrences, characterized by a strange entrance and an absolute loss of evidence, continue to invite speculation. However, when placed in the context of those days, even these can reasonably be assumed to be explained by human error in navigation, the use of obsolete equipment, and hazardous weather. The Bermuda Triangle is a fine example of the myth versus science scenario, illustrating how human perception can, through media and repetition, turn actual tragedies into everlasting legends. Yet, while the area itself does not arouse terror in the souls of navigators as it did before, its legacy serves as a magnet for intrigue. Eventually, the greatest mystery may not be underwater, but how the stories change and why we are so attracted to them. To this interesting perspective, institutions such as the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, overtly stated that it lies in a region where tropical cyclones are common, and that, due to the extremely complex topography of trenches and currents, the seafloor could just scatter that debris in no time, making recovery efforts very difficult in this place. It is this scientific explanation that demystifies the disappearance of vessels with, as it were, no trace. Furthermore, oceanographer Dr. Simon Boxall from the University of Southampton noted, the combination of Gulf Stream currents, unpredictable weather, and high traffic creates a perfect storm for accidents. If you found this as fascinating as we did, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into unsolved mysteries, and drop a comment below. What do you think is really happening in the Bermuda Triangle? And don't go anywhere. Tap the video on your screen right now to explore another mystery that might just change how you see the world. See you there.